So last but not least, Judy Rebick.
So I want to reinforce SUT's challenge and just say that Rabble, which I work with, works on a budget of $200,000 a year. And we have a news section, a discussion section, a podcast section, a television section. We do live streaming. Rabble now has an Occupy section that gives you the best collection of news about Occupy across Canada. Like, it's amazing, the site, amazing site. Blogs, we have this. And it's $200,000 a year. It's like nothing. Nobody can even believe that we can do it, and that's because there's so much volunteer work. If we could double that this year, for example, we could make a major challenge to mainstream media with Rabble. So I really, and Tyee is the same. Tyee is I'm sure their budget's a little higher because they have more institutional support, but they too can use the support, which are the two main big sites that we have now. And there are many, many others, so I really support that. The second thing I want to do is thank Bob Hackett, because without him there wouldn't be a media democracy. And then I want to say something, since I was here 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I started Rabble, and I started teaching at Ryerson, and I taught a graduate course in media. I called it Media Democracy. And at that time, I used people like SUT and Robert McChesney, American, Noam Chomsky, and I said, well, we're lucky in Canada because our media is better than the United States, right? I can't say that anymore. Our mainstream media. That's in 10 years. So in these 10 years, we have developed, really, I think Bob's right, beyond our imaginations, alternative media. Mostly online, but even offline, right? Like I was in the panel with Slutwalk and Shit Harper did. I love Shit Harper. Especially the thing with strangling the cat. That was so great. Shit Harper did, and Lead Now, three of phenomenal youth-led campaigns in the last year that have had such a media presence in the mainstream media and and online. It's just been incredible. So there's not even a difference anymore that much between something we consider to be a media thing and the media that comes out of campaigns and movements, right? It's all merging now. It's all merging now, and it's wonderful to see. But in that same period, we have had a deterioration of mainstream media that's palpable in Canada. It's starting to look more and more like the American media, even with the CBC. And most of that deterioration there's been a combination of the CBC television in particular, but also radio news. And CBC television news is just, it's getting like Fox News. I can't, in the last Gulf War, if I wanted to see a good coverage, I would turn on CBC. But now, when something's happening, because that's the only time I ever watch television news anymore, so something big's happening, because I can't stand it. I go to CNN, I go to CBC, and there's almost no difference anymore between the two, which is really, really sad. Really sad. Or the At Issue panel, which is like, yeah. A big groan for the At Issue panel, which is, which is like, here we have a parliament that is right and left, and we had an issue panel that is center-right, and center-right. Maybe occasionally center-left, one person on some topic. 2 weeks in a row on Occupy Wall Street, they all dismissed it out of hand. Of course, Andrew Coyne wrote a 24-page attack on it, so I guess it's not important. Why would he spend 24 pages attacking it if it wasn't important? But anyway, but nevertheless, I agree with that. We have to defend the idea of a public broadcaster. It's very important that we still have good stuff on CBC Radio. We still have The Current. We still have Q. We still have As It Happened. And I still have a voice on CBC Radio, and there's no other left-wing voice except in the Toronto Star, in the mainstream media. All the left-wing columnists are stuck in the Toronto Star. Linda McQuaid, I'm not saying stuck, it's a big newspaper, but you know, Linda McQuaig, Rick Salutin, why did they fire Rick Salutin from the Globe? They couldn't fire one of their right-wing assholes off the Globe. They fired the only person who's left person. So I think we have, right now, the CBC is under a huge attack. It's huge, it's massive. It's the government, it's the National Citizens Coalition, there's Facebook Quebecor started it, yeah. We have to defend the CBC as much as it may make us nauseous. Because we can get it better, okay? So this is what I want to say about what I think we could do now. You know, I said I hadn't thought about this, but I can always have an opinion. Okay, which is occupy the media. It's such a great slogan, right? So what does occupy the media mean? It means, yes, we are the media. We already know that, but there's something else it means, which is to support progressive journalists. See, one of the things that happens in a moment like this is people step out, you know? People step out in journalists, like a lot of young journalists, not a lot, okay, 3 or 4 have called me. But that's a lot, right? They've called me, like working for Mainstream, have called me and said, I really want to get this story on. Can you help me? Can you give me the arguments? Give me people who I can get. Give me, because journalists are being, good journalists, or young journalists anyway, are getting inspired by this movement too. And they want to step out and maybe take a chance. So we have to support them. So write down when you see a good report about Occupy or anything else, or any other movement, write down the person's name. Send them a note. Send them a letter to the editor praising the article. Support the people, the journalists who support good journalism, and also who support, you know, what we're doing, and give it some attention. Because I mean, we can debate about the online stuff. I'm not sure about that. But what I do agree with is most people get their news from the mainstream media. And I can tell you my experience, because I was in Vancouver last week, and then I came back, okay? I was away for a few days. Last week, every taxi driver I talked to, every person on the street I talked to, was really positive about Occupy Wall Street. This week, they're all dissing it, okay? Why? Because of the mainstream media coverage. That was why, right? So I really saw it. It was quite, you know, it's not often you can see it so clearly, but I really saw it. And so I think that we shouldn't underestimate the power, and I think that's the point that Peter was making, of the mainstream media. As much as we have alternate ways to talk to each other now, we still don't have, except in moments we have it, but we still don't have in a regular way, a way to talk to masses of people, except through the mainstream media. And so I've always argued this with people, that we have to push the mainstream media to be more, like I do a thing, okay, I write letters to the Globe Mail, and usually my letters get published because of who I am, but I always start with a real attack against them. So my last letter to the editor in defense of Occupy Vancouver started like this. The Globe and Mail was already at the top, was already in the running for the daily newspaper that least gets the Occupy movement. But what's his name? Gary Mason's rare front page column has definitely put you over the top. Now, I knew they were going to drop that line from my letter, but I like to put it in, you know? So, I don't know if it does any good, but it makes me feel better. So, and then I post it on Facebook, right? And Twitter. So it is important to intervene in the mainstream media, to support progressive journalists, to write letters when you don't like something, to put pressure on them, and it does have an impact. It really does, especially if enough people do it. So that's my plea. Occupy the media by supporting people in the media who are progressive and who are good journalists, and there still are some. So yeah, and defend the CBC.
Thank you very much to Judy and to all three of you. What I think I'll do, we just have a few minutes, but what I'll do is read a few questions that we've been handed and invite responses from any of you, if that's okay. They're on two different themes. One is on the Occupy movement, and the other is on the technological environment that we've been all referring to in one way or another. So here's one question. With the changing landscape with respect to print media and the growing impact and market of e-readers and e-books, and considering that India has just released an affordable $60 tablet computer, in your opinion, do these developments bode well or ill for media democracy? And here's a related question. Given the recent history of WikiLeaks being in danger of going out of business due to funding problems, what then do you think in this context of the prospects of longevity for democratic and independent mass media? Okay, so that's two related questions about the, if you like, the technological and economic environment. Another question concerns the Occupy movement, and this is for, again, for everybody in the panel. What are you doing to support your local Occupy movement, and do you support diversity of activist tactics? There's a question we probably can't do in about 2 minutes, but any comments you have on appropriate tactics? So there's two related questions. I'll sort of toss that grenade into your lap and you can do with it what you like.
I mean, on the ebook stuff, on the technological, I mean, I'll tell you my perspective from just my own experience, which is I have a friend who's a publisher of books, and the ebook stuff is really threatening their existence to be able to publish books, and to be able to have stuff that's not just going to be there in the Ethernet, but is going to be able to sit on a bookshelf that you can pull out, or something that you can take and hand to someone. I mean, I understand there are these ads for, I think it's the Kindle, and I almost feel like putting my foot through the screen, which is there's this woman who's going to go to the bookstore and it's really and she's got a bag and it's really heavy, and there's this smart guy saying, look, I've got 60,000 books on this thing. Why would you do something like go to a bookstore and buy a book? Well, I think you're going to have different kinds of knowledges. I think you're going to have a different relationship to knowledge when it's on an e-reader, as opposed to, I mean, we're in the land of McLuhan and Innes, who talked about how important the form of media was. That it wasn't just about content; it's also about the form. And I think we will lose something very, very significant if we lose the materiality of knowledge that is represented by books.
What was the first part? As soon as you said diversity of tactics, it wiped everything else out of my mind. What was the first part of that question?
How to support the local Occupy?
Okay, well, I've been doing nothing but support the Occupy movement, and the way that I do it is in the mainstream media, because I have a voice in the mainstream media. So I've been debating. I even went on a right-wing talk show. I even went on a Christian television network, which was actually quite interesting, because there was a lot of support for it. You can argue. I said, well, people are working with peace, with compassion and love. Christians should like that. And actually, this was a woman who was my arch enemy, apparently, I don't remember, in the pro-choice days, and she said, oh, I never thought you'd come on my show. Anyway. So that's what I do to support the movement, and also I have people in Toronto who call me when they have a problem. Like I consider myself sort of a kind of, like I'm thinking how to become an elder in the movement. I like the Aboriginal idea of elder, and I don't want to be out front. I want to be, except in my speeches, I want to be supporting young people and discussing with them and giving them, the benefit of my experience when they ask me for it. So that's what I'm doing to support the e-movement. I was a Freudian slip. The Occupy movement. I've been against diversity of tactics in the way that I agree with diversity of tactics in that we should all be involved in different tactics, and I love all the tactics and the creativity that are coming out in all these new movements. I am against diversity of tactics as it has become a cover for saying it's okay for 25 or 100 people to break windows and 1,100 people have nothing to do with it to get arrested. It's not okay. I'm morally against it. It's irresponsible. So if you want to go break windows, and I've never gone and broke windows, but I have done illegal stuff and get arrested for it. That's part of the movement. Don't get other people who didn't agree to do it in trouble. and don't discredit a whole movement because of what you want to do. And that's my position. I've got a lot of shit for it, but I am very strong. And Starhawk has written an excellent piece on this about the Occupy movement, where she said, whatever your position might have been in the anti-globalization movement on this, in this movement, it has to be nonviolent. It has been nonviolent, even in places like, okay, not Greece, because in Greece your idea of a good demonstration is to trash the entire downtown. But it's been like that for years. But everywhere else, it's been nonviolent, and that's a big part of the reason it's getting support. And you know, what happened in Oakland was not good, and the movement itself has dissociated from it, and I think that's good. So I think within the concept of nonviolent action, we should have a diversity of tactics, and we should have lots of debate and differences. We don't have to agree with each other, but right now, in the current context, it has, in my opinion, vandalism and violence is not acceptable. It would discredit the movement and ruin what's happening. The other thing, what was the other thing? See, I get so worked up about it. Okay, yeah, so that's my answer.